I'm wondering what you were thinking as our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, went to China, even though it was revealed that his account was hacked in May. We found out about it in June, and we have all the other things that they're doing between harassing our ships and our ships and our planes. And then that's followed by Secretary of Treasury goes over there, understands has some tea with mushrooms in it. That's kind of interesting. And then John Kerry goes over to China. What message are they taking from all this, do you think China is?
Well, I think all Marxist-Leninist regimes view such conciliation as weakness, as an invitation to aggression. And the paradox when dealing with such regimes is that they become more aggressive the more comfortable they feel. And I think this revival of engagement by the Biden administration, economic and diplomatic engagement, what I call zombie engagement, comes with a very significant cost, because we're now learning that the Biden administration is shelving, delaying key defensive action that we need to take, such as putting an end to these export licenses we're providing to Huawei, such as sanctioning key CCP officials complicit in genocide, such as transparency surrounding the spy balloon incident. All of these things have been delayed because of their desire to talk to the Chinese Communist Party in the hope of lowering the temperatures. But this has not only failed when it's been tried before for over 20 years, it is failing in real time right now, because as the hacks reveal, as we suspend defensive activities in order to get to the negotiating table, with no real prospect of a negotiating agreement or some sort of major breakthrough in mind, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't stop their economic and cyber war against us and our allies. They leverage and exploit our desire to talk for talking state in order to advance their authoritarian agenda. That's what's going on right now. It's very concerning. And a quick note on John Kerry. He's actually their favorite interlocutor. The CCP loves to deal with John Kerry because John Kerry, of course, believes that the biggest threat to the world is not the CCP, but rather climate change. And he believes, against all evidence, that the Chinese Communist Party cares about climate change and that somehow we can work cooperatively with them when it comes to climate change. So this is very dangerous. This is a real setback for what I perceive to be more of a bipartisan hardening of our position on China. And the fact that there is a growing faction in the Biden administration that wants to revive engagement is really dangerous for our interests and security in the Indo-Pacific.
Congressman Gallagher, it's pretty clear August 1st, they're going to stop two key metals from being exported to us. We've also limited some exports to them. So that's going to hurt this new push that evidently we financed in the Inflation Reduction deal for electric cars, which, by the way, everyone's losing money on, including Ford. You would know this. Ford is losing money on the Lightning now. So, and it was billions of dollars. So now we're getting stuck with these electric cars, and we're not going to have the metals to do it, so it means we're going to have to pay them more to get it or go elsewhere.
Well, as a matter, I mean, if you step back and just think about the trillions of dollars we're fixing to spend so that we can have electric vehicles, there's no evidence to suggest, when you consider the full life cycle of these vehicles, unless you own them for something like 40 years, that it's better for the environment. In many cases, when you factor in the mining and the slave labor involved in battery production, they're actually worse for the environment and human rights. And oh, by the way, for electric vehicles, where does the electricity come from, I wonder? It's not largely coming from renewables. So the entire environmental premise for this this massive use of taxpayer dollars, I think, is on shaky ground. And then the Ford case illustrates the further dilemma, which is that Ford is now using Inflation Reduction Act dollars to build a massive battery facility in the United States, but in partnership with a Chinese battery company called CATL, which is already one of the dominant battery companies in the world. So the risk is that this will allow CATL to further solidify its dominant position and thereby give the Chinese Communist Party more coercive economic leverage going forward. And the fact that American taxpayer dollars could be used for this project, I think, should raise a lot of concerns, because even the Secretary of Energy and others, when they were selling the Inflation Reduction Act, said that this was meant as a way to wean ourselves off our dependency on China. But I'm very concerned that paradoxically, it's actually going to increase our dependency on China, which we've seen time and again is a recipe for geopolitical disaster.
And just so you know, John Kerry, his climate deal fell short. He failed to convince China to stop building a coal plant a week. So that's going to continue. He said the two nations have vowed to continue meeting on climate change. It's a small step, it's listed as an effort to restore relations with President Xi. How disturbing is it for you to know that he is rewriting the Bible and putting himself in it for all of China to digest?
Well, we had a fascinating roundtable with religious leaders on this very subject from many faiths, Catholics, other Christian sects, Muslim, etc., and all were united in calling out the war on religion that the CCP is perpetrating. And I think most Americans would be shocked to learn that in the official CCP-approved version of the Bible, they rewrite the story where Jesus defends the adulterous woman and says the famous words, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, and dissolves all of the crowd that's there. In the CCP-approved version of that telling, Jesus himself picks up the stone and stones the woman to death. Because, of course, the idea that there could be an authority higher than earthly authority, an authority that transcends government like God, and in America, of course, we are a nation under God, and our rights come from God, it's inimical to the survival of the Chinese Communist Party, who wants to control everything. And Xi Jinping increasingly is placing himself in the position of God. And I think this explains their war on religion, their war on free speech, and tells us something essential about the nature of the regime we're dealing with.
So when we look at China right now, their economy is doing terribly. It has almost no growth. Then we look around and we see that a lot of people are concerned, like you are, Mike Gallagher, like Australia, like Japan, like South Korea, like the Philippines. And the same way European NATO gave a joint statement basically condemning some of the practices of China. We have an opportunity with the right message and the right plan. Does this frustrate you that there's a window here and we don't seem to be fully going? It's not like we're avoiding it. It's not like we're praising them, but we're not fully taking advantage of it.
It's incredibly frustrating. I do think we have an opportunity to unite the free world in opposition to the totalitarian agenda of the Chinese Communist Party, and add countries that don't neatly fit into the free world concept to our plan for preserving the free world. The lack of urgency with which the federal government has tackled this has been distressing. I see it mostly in the military domain, where we are, our Navy continues to dwindle. We aren't rebuilding our stockpiles of key munition systems. We're not getting creative in terms of how we leverage allied capabilities. We have a narrow window of here. We are in the window of maximum danger, and we need to be moving heaven and earth to move hard power to the Indo-Pacific to prevent World War III. Because as difficult as deterrence is, as difficult as a Cold War is, it is far preferable to a hot war. And the paradox is you have to wage Cold War with the same intensity and creativity and consistency of purpose that you would wage actual war. And avoiding war is the game here, at least the short-term game, and then winning the competition is the long-term game. But we're not doing it. We need to be moving faster, and I do think there's an opportunity to bring in our allies and put some bipartisan consensus behind at least some of these recommendations.
So tell me about the UC Berkeley and them possibly working with the Chinese military. You're investigating this?
We are. I think, this is a microcosm of something we're seeing throughout higher education, which is our colleges and very distinguished academic institutions view China as a lucrative source of money. Your individual Chinese student is very lucrative relative to American students, and a lot of money comes from China and is given to American universities, and in some cases is not reported. A lot of these or institutions are just ignoring the Higher Education Act. So we launched a joint investigation with the Ed and Workforce Committee to examine UC Berkeley's partnership with Tsinghua University, known as TBSI. TBSI is engaging in research in dual-use technologies that will be used to advance the Chinese military and intelligence capabilities. It's collaborating with Chinese universities that the U.S. government has banned from receiving U.S.-sensitive technology. And despite billing this as an academic partnership, in practice, one of TBSI's main functions is to facilitate PRC funding of Berkeley research, all the while reportedly failing to disclose funding from the city of Shenzhen and from Tsinghua itself. And so there's a lot of unanswered questions here, and we need to make sure that our universities aren't providing a way for the CCP to steal our best ideas, as well as just corrupt the academic process and the research process more broadly, and ultimately fuel their civil-military fusion project that's designed to do things like perfect weapon systems that can kill Americans in a future war. So that's why we launched this investigation.
Also, I think it's important to what we're seeing in Ukraine. What do you think China, do you have any intelligence, besides a hunch and logic, do you have any intelligence to show you how the Chinese are viewing the war in Ukraine?
We don't know. There's sort of an argument that because Russia has underperformed, that perhaps it has caused Xi to pause or reconsider the ease with which he could take Taiwan. The other argument is that he is learning from Russian failures and making sure that he does not repeat those failures. These are obviously different theaters. There's different tactical and operational problems. I think it would be a mistake to speculate one way or the other. I think the broader warning signs are there that Xi Jinping is preparing to take Taiwan by force if necessary. This is what he keeps telling us in plain language. And if he's going to experience significant demographic and economic problems in the 2030s, he may become more risk acceptant in the next few years and may conclude that this is his best chance to achieve his lifelong ambition, despite what he's seeing happen in Ukraine right now. One thing is clear, one positive sign, and I'll end with this, is that some of our key allies are watching what's happening in Ukraine, and there's some good things happening. I point to Japan, which is rearming right now, increasing their defense spending, investing in asymmetric systems. This is a massive positive development.
I hear you. Congressman, thanks for all you're doing. Congressman Mike Gallagher, thank you.